Hi, this is Jeff Curto, and welcome to episode number 28 of Camera Position, a podcast about the creative side of photography. Well, let's see. Let me just kind of catch you up a little bit on where I've been. And those of you who've been used to getting things about once a week, I kind of slipped a little bit last week. I'm now back from all of these different summer travels. I was away in northern Michigan for a little while, and before that, of course, in Italy for a few weeks. And now my day job, my main gig of teaching photography is about to start up again. The fall semester at College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois, where I work. And so I've been prepping all of my classes and getting my handouts together and so forth and so on. And I know that a lot of you who are out there listening know this, but I thought I'd mention it again, that I have another podcast about the history of photography. And of course, I take a little bit of a hiatus on that during the summer break period because I'm not teaching the history of photography. But for those of you who are interested in the history of the medium, you may want to check that out. And there's a link right on the cameraposition.com blog page to the history of photography course lectures. So they're somewhat different, actually quite different from what we do here each week here at Camera Position, but I think a lot of you might find it at least moderately intriguing. They're a little bit longer. Class lasts about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but like my students, you'll muddle through. Anyway, I wanted to tag on to last Camera Position 27, where we were talking about the mind and the machine and the idea that picking up a different camera changes the aspect of how you might approach a subject. And as I was thinking about that, as I re-listened to the podcast when I published it, I was thinking about photographers who work the other way around. Instead of having a different camera dictate what it is that they might be interested in making photographs of, what about photographers who go the other way and use that right tool for the right job? You know, that old adage that if the only tool you've got is a hammer, it's a heck of a lot harder to put in a screw, and you really ought to be using a screwdriver. So I thought that I would spend a few minutes here looking at the work and talking about the work of one of my favorite contemporary photographers and an all-around great guy, Philip Trager. Some of you may be familiar with Traeger's work, and I thought I'd give you a little thumbnail sketch of Traeger. Philip Traeger's work in photography in his early years, and he's been practicing photography for quite a long time. In his early years, he made a name by making architectural images, some of which you're looking at now in the enhanced podcast. He did a variety of architectural photography books, and as a photographer, Traeger tends to think of his work in long-form kind of project, and we'll be talking about long-form photographic projects a little bit later on in upcoming episodes of Camera Position, some things I've got planned. But some of the books that I was familiar with of Philip Traeger's, some of the work of his that I was familiar with, he did a beautiful book called The Villas of Palladio, those great Palladian villas in the northeastern corner of Italy. He did a series of photographs, architectural photographs of New York City, and his most recent architectural book is a book of photographs of Paris, Changing Paris, A Tour Along the Seine, which was published around 2000. And Traeger is interesting in that at some point in the early 1980s, Traeger decided one morning, woke up and said, you know what? I would like to photograph modern dance. And, if you ask Traeger, what do you know about modern dance? He'd say, well, at that time, he said, well, nothing. I don't know anything about modern dance, but what he recognized was that it was something that had potential as a photographic subject. And so he set upon a task of making an extended series of photographs of modern dance, which culminated in a beautiful book, probably one of the most beautifully produced photo books I've ever seen, a book called Dancers, which, if you ever get a chance to take a look at it, is really an extraordinary book, an extraordinary publication in terms of the quality of reproduction and the care with which it was put together. It's clear that Traeger's interest in photographs in book form really transcends the idea of just making a book, but he looks at the book as a finished piece of artwork in addition to his fine prints and so forth and so on. So the interesting thing about Traeger and these photographs of dancers, at least one of the things that I found really interesting about them, is that Traeger decided that he was going to photograph modern dance and wanted to photograph these dancers out of doors in motion, and a lot more interesting, I think, than some of the other photographs of dancers in motion in studios that I've seen, and I'm sure some of you have seen them as well. A lot of these photographs were made at a place called Jacob's Pillow, which is in the Berkshire Mountains of Massachusetts, this gorgeous outdoor facility where a lot of modern dance occurs. So here's Traeger deciding that what he wants to do is make these photographs of dancers, and he's a photographer who has, throughout his career, predominantly photographed in large format, monochrome, black and white photographs, and used a 4x5 camera on a tripod, and recognizes that it's going to be pretty tough to make photographs of these aggressive, interesting modern dance movements using the large format camera. So he figured out a compromise camera, and Traeger is somebody that is very interested and very committed to extraordinarily high quality reproductions of his vision. So the idea of the compromise of the smaller format negative was one that he took a really serious sort of look at. How can I get the kind of quality that I'm used to from my 4x5 negative, says he, with a smaller format camera, and still be able to move and be able to capture these dancers in motion. And what he wound up with was a 6 by 4.5 centimeter, a 645 style camera with an eye-level viewfinder that would allow him a little bit of flexibility and a larger negative than 35 millimeter. And I've seen a lot of the original prints of these images, and they're extraordinary. Extraordinary in the same way that Traeger's images of architecture were extraordinary. Incredibly high quality images in terms of their technical facility. But as you can see with these few images that I've included here, sensitivity to the idea of motion and the idea of movement of these dancers through space, and the idea of moment, something that really doesn't factor into the architectural photographer's repertoire very much at all, is the idea of moment. So here's that idea of mind and machine sort of worked backwards. Rather than having the machine be something that helps free you to another level of photography, what Traeger winds up with in these photographs is coming at it the other way around, recognizing that there is a subject he's excited about, a subject he's interested in, and then coming at the idea of how can I capture that with the machines that exist in the world today? What's the best tool to do this particular job? So that whole idea, again, and I promise I won't get too mired down in technology or technique in camera position, but the idea that we are, in fact, as photographers, tied to the problem of our equipment, the problem of how our equipment works and how it enables us and limits us and allows us in many ways to do what it is that we want to do, or in some cases prohibits us from doing the sorts of things that we might want to do. Imagine these dance photographs made with a large format camera. They would certainly have an amazing clarity, but I think a lot of the dancers would have moved out of the frame before Traeger was able to photograph them. So the idea of mind and machine worked from sort of the other direction. Well, thanks for listening. I really appreciate those of you who have taken some time to go to the iTunes store and make comments. I noticed that there are a few more since the last time I looked. I really appreciate that. I do think that it is a way in which, not really very clear in terms of the iTunes store podcast specifications, but I think that they base their positioning of the podcasts on comments and quality of comments, and I appreciate that nobody's posted some negative comments, which I am grateful for, so thank you. So anybody who wants to stop by there and make a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. I very much like hearing from you, and try to answer back as often as I can. If I don't get an answer to you right away, it's because I'm thinking about an answer. And if you post something to the cameraposition.com blog as a comment, which I would encourage you to do, I may just answer it right there instead of answering via email. Thanks again for listening to Camera Position. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Camera Position, a podcast about the creative side of photography.